Let's take you to northwest England, and the Prime Minister is about to give a conference.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Joanne. It is great to be here for your first annual delegate meeting as General Secretary. And I've heard that yesterday and today this is going really well here, so it's fantastic to be invited to be with you, and it's always great to be here in this room, in this environment, at your conference. I was here 2 years ago, and I was here several years before that, but last time I was here as Leader of the Opposition, this time I'm here as Prime Minister, working with you to deliver the change that we need across our country. But I wanted to start by sharing something with you. It's from a shop worker called Finola, who is here with us today. She is an Asda rep. She's worked in a supermarket for 11 years, and last year at the TUC Congress reception, Finola found me and just gave me a letter for me to read. I want to share it with you because this is the letter. She said, "A few years ago, I was verbally abused as a customer by a customer when I asked if he needed assistance. He started shouting racist remarks at me, and he threatened to go after my children." She said, "I felt so scared, my legs were shaking." Finola then said in her letter to me, "The next day I wanted to stay at home. My mental health was in a terrible place. But as a single parent reliant on statutory sick pay, I couldn't afford to lose a day of pay." And the reason why Finola had given me the letter, because she went on to say, that is why the Employment Rights Bill is so important. It will increase the responsibility for employers to protect workers like me from harassment. I will mean all workers will have access to sick pay from day one. Finola, thank you. I think you're in Region C. Finola, would you mind just standing up so we can give you a round of applause? Finola, thank you for handing that letter to me. What you went through was really awful, but the really important thing is we heard you. We passed that bill. We stood firm on the side of working people, and it is now, Finola, the law of the land for you and for every single person in this country to finally enjoy the protections you deserve at work. Sick pay from day one. Paternity leave from day one. Fire and rehire scrapped. Protection for whistleblowers. No more gagging orders on sexual harassment. No more exploitative zero-hour contracts. Stronger collective consultation rights. And I know how important that is for shop workers. And underpinning all of that, a proper living wage, the embodiment of the simple demand that has always guided the labour movement, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. That is what we've delivered together. That is a Britain fair for all. And delegates, it's more than just a change in the law, because as Finola said in another part of her letter, we faced huge resistance. I mean, we announced those proposals back in 2022, nearly 4 years ago now. And from day one, some people wanted to stop it at all costs. It's a reminder for all of us that everything in politics, everything that the labour movement has achieved over the years, it's always hard won, hard fought for, everything. You have to stand firm. You have to stand together. You have to fight. But when we do that, then together we send a message to every corner of our country, to the shop workers, but also to the cleaners, the carers, the drivers, the technicians, cooks, bartenders, the working people of this country, that whatever your job, whatever your background, you deserve security, respect, and fair pay at work. That is the Britain we're building, a country that is fair for all. And conference, I'll always fight for working people, because I know exactly whose side I'm on. Let me tell you about another worker, a carer, works long hours on low pay, year after year after year. She was a care worker during the pandemic, 14-hour shifts, often overnight. And, you know, in the pandemic, just like Finola, some care workers didn't have sick pay. So if they were sick, they had to stay at home and simply not get paid at all. In the pandemic, as we were all clapping them, recognising what they were doing for our country. Well, delegates, that care worker is my sister. And every day I ask myself, does Britain work for her? Does Britain work for people like my late brother? I had a life touched by opportunity. I grew up working class, and I've been lucky. But Nick, my brother, he had difficulties learning and spent his entire adult life going from one job to the next. Does Britain work for people like him? Because there are millions of people like that. People who've been ignored by politics for years. People who don't get the dignity and the respect that they deserve, and who don't get the opportunity to go as far as their talent and effort would take them. So yes, I know whose side I'm on. I'm on the side of the young people whose gifts lie in their hands, who work hard, want their talents to be recognised, just want an opportunity in their community. That's why I'm boosting apprenticeships, setting up new technical excellence colleges, investing in special needs education, and giving every young person in the country struggling to find work the guarantee of training, work support, or an apprenticeship. I'm on the side of children who, during austerity, had to go to school without breakfast, cold because they couldn't afford to put their heating on, tired because the same thing happened yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. That's why I've extended free school meals. That's why I'm setting up breakfast clubs in every primary school. And that's why I ended the shameful two-child benefit limit, lifting nearly 500,000 children out of poverty and giving them the chance that they deserve in life. And I'm on the side of working people, just like my sister, the backbone of this country, people who work harder and harder, but see their pay getting them less and less. The people who worry about the cost of living. They're not asking for the world. They want a bit of security, peace of mind, and a little bit of extra money so they can treat their kids every now and again. That's whose side I'm on, delegates. That's why I've frozen rail fares, frozen prescription charges, given renters more power, capped ground rents, raised the living wage to a record amount. And why, whatever happens in the Middle East, we've cut your energy bills and we have capped them until July. Delegates, that's another thing that I will always stand firm on. I will never let this country be dragged into a war that is not in our interests. Never. That is a lesson British politics should have learnt a long time ago with Iraq. And yet, when the rush to war began on Iran, I was heavily criticised by others who had no thought for the consequences, for our country, for your family. But that is not how I operate, because I have working people in my mind's eye for every decision. And yet, delegates, I have to level with you about Iran, because the truth is the economic consequences could still be with us for some time. You don't need to be a politician to know that. You can see it on every petrol forecourt across the country. I'll repeat what I said just now because it's important. In April, because of the decisions we made at the last budget, your gas bills came down, and they will stay down until July, whatever happens in Iran. Fuel duty is also frozen until September. We've supported people who heat their homes using oil. And we are monitoring this daily. So, delegates, for example, tomorrow, I'm chairing a meeting in Cobra on the impact, bringing in people from the Bank of England, so you can be sure we will stand by working people in this crisis. But look, just like Iraq years ago, there is a deeper lesson here, one that British politics has continually refused to learn. Because what Iran shows is that once again, events happening miles away from Britain have the capacity to hurt our living standards, our future, and our security. And so our response will define not just this government, but arguably this generation. And so this time it must be different. We cannot respond to this moment by thinking that we just need to get back to the status quo. That is the mistake that was made after the 2008 financial crash with austerity. It was made in Brexit, COVID, and the Ukraine war. And we cannot add Iran to that list because the status quo manifestly failed working people. It kept your wages low, the economy stagnant, and your public services decimated. In other words, the status quo made working people like you pay the price. I would not go back to that, even if I could. And delegates, we can't. Because the world has changed. It is more volatile and dangerous now than at any point in my lifetime, and I'm sure in yours. It will test and test again every element of our security, our economic security, our energy security, our defence security. That's why we've had to confront such difficult decisions. We're working at pace to give Britain a stronger foundation, trying to make us a more resilient country, so we can weather not just this storm, but all the storms that are going to be much more frequent in this dangerous world. It's about resilience. That's what gives us security and control. Without it, we are constantly pushed off course by events beyond our borders. But with it, we have the power to act. We can strengthen our security, take control of our future, and with that control, we can deliver the fairer Britain that working people want to see. Now, you can see this in everything that we've done before and during the Middle East crisis. Yes, we capped your energy bills, but we also invested in clean British energy. That is the only way to free us from tyrants like Putin, who can manipulate gas prices. And so we've backed British power, taken control of our energy security. Yes, we've stayed out of the war, but we've also rebuilt our alliances in Europe, boosted our defences with the single biggest sustained investment since the Cold War, backed British jobs and taken control of our defence security. And yes, we've taken steps to push your wages up as you deserve. But we've also launched an ambitious industrial strategy, repaired the public finances, and given ordinary people in places like Blackpool the power to decide for themselves how we rebuild together. That's our Pride in Place investment programme. We put those with skin in the game in charge of their community to give you and them more control over what matters to you. And delegates, I know that what matters to you, particularly in this room and those that you represent, is security in your workplace, greater stability in the hours that you work, regular hours, each week, so you can plan work around your family life. This is my point. Security isn't something that is delivered by government. It is something that has to be felt. And you should feel safe and secure in your workplace. That is fundamental. It is your right. Now, I started, obviously, reading out Finola's letter. And when you do that with a letter, during a speech like this, you can give the impression, you know, that this example is extraordinary. But it's not, is it? Finola's experience is the kind of thing that happens every day right across this country. Working people, grafters, go to work, do the right thing, keep our high streets thriving, and yet too often they're abused or assaulted by people who think they can get away with it and just cheat the system. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful that people just working in their shop have to take abuse from customers. It's disgraceful that people feel sick to the stomach thinking about how they're going to get through the day. And it's disgraceful that people can have their lives and livelihoods ruined by persistent shop theft. So first of all, I want you to know that we see this. We're not going to dismiss it. We're not going to fob you off with half measures. We're currently reforming the police across the country so we can free up their time and their money to focus more on street policing, neighbourhood policing, cracking down on antisocial behaviour. We've already got an extra 3,000 neighbourhood police on the streets, and there's more to come. We've scrapped the ridiculous regulation where stolen goods worth less than £200 would not be properly investigated. That was a shoplifter's charter, and we've ended it, and not before time. And we've toughened up punishment too. We're giving police stronger powers, making the abuse and assault of retail workers a specific crime, giving you the same protections as emergency workers, and you deserve it. And look, I'm not blind to how big this challenge is, but the numbers of people charged has gone up by 17% in the latest stats. Shop theft is down. It's only slightly down, but the tide could be turning. There's also the hope of technology, because in some parts of the country, police and retailers have been using technology that sends CCTV footage through to the police immediately. So there's no delay, no risk that the footage might be wiped before the evidence can be collated. You're all familiar with that. It all happens straight away, goes straight through. And in some of those areas where those trials are taking place, the police are solving double the number of shop thefts, double. So I want to see that rolled out across the country, make a real difference. Because this government has your back. We're calling time on the free-for-all. And we are standing firm together against the disgraceful crime of shop theft. And you know, what is true of shoplifting is true of everything. It's how we change this country. We change it together. I know times are tough. They've been tough for years. I've seen it through my own family. And so, given everything that working people have been through because of politics, I know it's a bit rich for politicians to say, Britain needs you. I get that. But I've always believed in partnership. Those have always been my values when it comes to this movement, to business, to the whole country, because I fundamentally believe that the common bond of our country, the ground that we all share and love, is stronger than the grievance and division we see in so much of politics. And so, bottling the pride that you all feel for your workplace, your community, your country, that is the key to changing Britain and coming out of this period stronger and fairer. And I tell you now, I will fight for that with every breath I have. I will fight for working people, fight for the tolerant, decent, respectful Britain that I know and I love, because that is my politics, and it is time to strengthen our security, take control of our future, and build a Britain that is fair for all. Thank you so much, conference. Thank you. Thank you.
Here's Starmer there addressing the Union of Shop, Distributive and Allied Workers, talking about a country that was fair for all, talked about some of the social welfare and work reforms that the Labour Party under Sir Keir Starmer had brought into place, talking about the economic consequences of the war in Iran, being with us for some time, about global volatility, and then also tackling antisocial behaviour as well. Apologies for some of the turbulent camera shots at the beginning of that. Not Sky News' camera work, but we brought you those comments nonetheless. No tectonic activity in Lancashire, I can promise you, just a slightly wobbly tripod. Well, watching all of that was our political correspondent, Rob Powell. Rob, I don't really feel as though we learned anything new, but we did learn that Sir Keir Starmer is kind of coming out, attempting to be on the front foot this week, even if political winds might not allow that. Yeah,
I thought it was a relatively plucky performance from Keir Starmer there, kind of relative maybe to the sort of context and the fairly grim position that he finds himself in. He obviously talked a lot about shop theft, retail theft and employment rights because he is addressing a union that represents a lot of shop workers. He made it pretty personal as well. He talked about his sister, a low-paid carer, and her experience during the pandemic. He also talked about his late brother as well, who had various challenges in his life, extra needs, educational needs as well. And I thought at the end, it was a bit of a rallying cry that it felt like it could have come actually from a sort of Labour leaders' conference speech rather than necessarily a union conference speech, when he talked about coming out of this stronger, I'll fight for this with every breath I have because that's my politics. Well, look, you can sometimes maybe read a bit too much into that, but very much, I guess, backing up the message that he gave in that interview that he did with the Sunday Times yesterday, when he basically said he wasn't going anywhere, that he could fight the next election, that he could win the next election as well. I thought in terms of content in that speech as well, it was clearly tailored to a more left-wing ear, a left-wing audience, because he was addressing union members, but actually quite sort of robustly making the case for some of the Labour government's more left-wing bits of policy is something quite a few of his party would like to see the Prime Minister do more frequently in a more wider variety of venues as well, especially things like the Employment Right Act, the big changes to various elements of employment law and rights that staff members now get. Stuff in there that was spearheaded at the beginning anyway by Angela Rayner that, yes, makes some in business a little bit queasy. And I think there was a feeling among some in the Labour Party that there was a sort of reluctance to talk about it too much because of worries that it might upset business if you are seen to be championing something that they may worry puts too much red tape into the process of employing people. But I think in terms of some of the audiences that they are trying to pitch to, lots of MPs want to see that sort of stuff talked about a little bit more. So, yeah, no sign in there of the Prime Minister kind of ducking the attention or sort of shrivelling away, if you like. I thought it was relatively punchy given the situation he finds himself in. Of course, tomorrow things may turn back to the Mandelson fiasco with that committee evidence coming from Philip Barton, the former chief civil servant at the Foreign Office before Ollie Robbins. He'll likely be asked about Keir Starmer's suggestion in the Commons that no pressure was applied to the Foreign Office in pushing through the Mandelson clearance and vetting process. And then we will have Morgan McSweeney tomorrow as well. And then the prospect, potentially, if the Speaker allows it, of some sort of vote to maybe refer the Prime Minister to the Privileges Committee. Now, that's not guaranteed. It may well be that the Speaker stands up later today and says he doesn't think that that is necessary. And even if there is a vote, it would need a majority of MPs to vote for it to trigger an inquiry. And that is by no means certain because of the majority Labour has. And there may well, this close to the local elections and the elections in Wales and Scotland, there may well not be an appetite among MPs to subject the Prime Minister to that process that, of course, finished off Boris Johnson in the end. I think we're getting an indication, though, this morning that if that does come to a vote, it seems likely that number 10 will fight it, will push MPs to block it. Emma Reynolds, the Environment Secretary, pretty punchy on the morning programmes this morning, saying that this was basically just silly political games that the opposition were playing as well. Emily Thornberry, interestingly as well, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee that's been overseeing this inquiry into the Mandelson fiasco, she's also said this morning she doesn't think a Privileges Committee investigation is necessary at the moment either. So it may well be that doesn't get off the launch pad. Opposition parties, though, clearly trying to push another day or two of coverage around the Mandelson fiasco into the headlines before Parliament prorogues later this week, because, of course, we get the state opening of Parliament in a couple of weeks' time after those local elections. So the time in the chamber, anyway, to have debates that could damage the Prime Minister, as the opposition sees it, are running out.
Rob Howe, live in Westminster for us. Thank you so much. Plenty more from the politics team on the Politics Hub live blog, of course, and plenty more as well. The all-new Cathy Newman show live at 7 o'clock this evening. Do tune in for that.